Okay.
Okay. Hey, Jen, I voted. Did you vote?
I did.
Oh my gosh. I voted for MAGA versus MAGA, and unfortunately, I had to vote for a MAGA.
Uh, I I don't know what political party they were, but I voted for people who I felt like were the best for our schools.
Oh, that's what I had to go with what MAGA I thought was going to help the community better. But my MAGA has a picture of Trump with the American flag, but the other MAGA was a super aggressive white male MAGA.
Yeah, never super
So
aggressive white male.
I'd rather have a super aggressive female MAGA over a super aggressive male MAGA, but that's
Yeah,
just,
it's a lesser of two evils, I
it might be
guess.
the misandry in me, but all right. Well, hey, y'all. I'm Chelsey. I'm a homeschooling mom of two living in the Dallas suburbs. I live in the Kaufman County CD5 area, so you'll see me out there with landscape and stuff. I love diving into history with my kids, whether we're exploring dusty books or stargazing at night. When politics start reshaping our world, I can't help but raise my voice to protect their future.
I'm Jen. I am a busy mom with three teenagers, and I love strong coffee, and they keep my coffee strong and my patience stronger. I started paying attention to policy when it hit close to home, from school book bans to healthcare crises. I've learned that my silence is just not an option.
Dear America, wake the hell up. We're raising our kids in the shadow of a political blueprint that reads like a dystopian novel. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a TikTok myth. It's called Project 2025. And it's real.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
That's Ronald Reagan in 1981. And 40 years later, Donald Trump and the Heritage Foundation are taking these words and turning them into a full-on war on the citizens of this country.
We are two moms, one born in Reagan years and one born during the Bush-Clinton handoff. And we both know what it feels like to live through cuts, lies, and cultural gaslighting. We're not just going to stay quiet while history repeats itself, louder, scarier, and better funded.
This isn't just about elections. It's about deregulating child labor laws. It's about dismantling the Department of Education. It's about rolling back LGBTQIA plus protections, environmental safeguards, reproductive rights, and the very idea of church and state being separate.
It's about scaring the public with freedom slogans while stripping freedom from everyone who doesn't fit the mold.
And if you've heard the name Project 2025 and feel overwhelmed, we get it. But we've been there too. But knowledge is power. And today we're going to unpack this agenda with the way that only moms can, with receipts, rage, and real talk.
Hell yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what is Project 2025? While there are no women of the past, well, while there's one woman of the past, we're going to talk about women of the future today. So, let's get into it. What is Project 2025? Because we know a lot of people have heard the term, but maybe they've only seen it as a headline or a tweet. So, we're going to start from the top.
It's not just a Trump plan, it's a movement. It's a 922-page policy manual called the Mandate for Leadership. It was written by the Heritage Foundation and over 50 conservative think tanks, and they've been working on it for years.
Chills.
Ugh.
And let's be real, when I first started reading it, I felt so sick. I don't know if you know. Do you follow Frazzled, Miss Frazzled?
No.
Okay, she's awesome, but
Okay.
she actually broke down Project 2025 almost page for page, but she like specializes in Department of Education stuff, but she's also female and has, a lot of opinions anyways, but we broke down the whole 900 pages together when that broke. So the more I read, the more it felt like someone taking a Sharpie to the Constitution. My first reaction was just this wave of fear. I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream, and I wanted to hug my kids all at once.
Okay, we all know that Trump loves him a good Sharpie, right?
But not another.
Yeah. So, but the scary part is it's not fringe. Like, it's not. Trump, even on the election trail, may have distanced himself from it because it was wildly unpopular. But since taking office, he's enacted almost 50% of the initiatives in his first 100 days. And most of the voters have no idea what it includes. And the ones who have heard it call us fearmongers.
Mm-hmm.
And then even scarier is the group of people that are cheering it on.
Yeah, we deal with them frequently.
Yeah.
Frequently.
They live here.
Yeah, we are in a very red part of Texas, so
Yeah.
it's just our everyday lives at this point.
Yeah.
So let's break it down like moms do. with highlighters and no patience for nonsense. Here are some of the most dangerous ideas inside Project 2025. So, to fire thousands of career federal workers and replace them with loyalists, which is already happening. We fired the federal workers. Now we have the loyalists coming in, and now our loyalists are leaving, and now we're hiring more loyalists. Did you hear that with Hegseth?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like about 3 of his loyalists quit on him. And they even had the op-ed in New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
Dismantle the Department of Education. Check. Criminalize immigration further, including deporting naturalized citizens or starving them in Miami.
Or sending homegrowns.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's next.
Yeah.
Ban abortion medication nationwide, like Cytotec, which I used for my induction with my first child that I did not abort. She is living and she is here. Defund public health, environmental protections, poop water, and even programs like Social Security.
Yeah, it's totally authoritarian energy. It's a plan to consolidate executive power in a way that we have never seen in American history.
Yeah. And it's not just about Trump. It's about anyone who wants to come in and execute this plan like it's a CEO takeover of democracy. Have you ever felt like people in power were rewriting the rules while you were still trying to figure out the game?
Well, what shocked me is how deep it goes. It talks about purging civil servants and replacing them with ideological aligned workers. That is not making government smaller. That is creating a regime of loyalists.
Yeah.
That's scary.
It's very scary, especially with who the loyalists are.
Yeah, completely unqualified.
100% DUI hire. Oh my gosh. Exactly. It's not just about shrinking government. It's about weaponizing it. There are multiple quotes right now about where Trump wanted Hegseth to make war fighters.
I saw something about
Just
them
war
wanting
fighters.
to change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of Attack or something. Like, what? No,
I don't like that.
that sounds so aggressive.
It is aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to attack Greenland and
Yeah.
Canada and
All of our allies.
the Panama Canal. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the allies. So they want a president who can act like a king, that can fire judges, that can investigate political enemies and call it order. HR 1526, anybody? No Rogue Judges Act?
Yeah, our representative co-sponsored that one. Ugh. So it does make me think about the stuff that I grew up hearing. My mom and dad talked about Reagan and what a great president he was. And
Still hear about how
I know, Reaganomics, nothing should be free. You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and
guy
have
who
the modern American dream.
literally survived off of social services
Yeah.
as a child.
Yeah.
They didn't have a choice. They didn't
Yeah.
have free education. But yeah, go and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So my parents believed that the federal government should stay out of everything. But now we see how that mindset leads here today to a plan that destroys the very systems families like ours rely on. And then they call them welfare queens when they need help.
So for everyone who's listening, this is not a conspiracy. It's written out. It's public. It's available. You can Google Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership and read it for yourself. But while you're at it, please also Google the Project 2025 tracker that tracks executive orders that align with Project 2025 initiatives.
Yeah, but warning, it will absolutely ruin your day. And then hopefully it'll light a fire under your feet like it did ours. What part of Project 2025 would affect your family most directly? Healthcare, education, immigration?
For sure, education, because I have a college student, soon to be high school student, and a soon to be middle school student. And so any cuts to public education or any kind of restrictions on college age students and their ability to get financial aid, among other things, it's terrifying stuff. I don't know what we're going to do. And all the times in the past when they had to federal mandate things, it's because the states weren't doing their job.
Yeah.
And the government had to step in because they weren't protecting the marginalized people.
Jasmine Crockett that just said that too.
Did she?
Somebody did. I don't
mean, that's
remember who
why.
it was.
That's what I
no,
was.
it was Julie Johnson town
Oh,
hall.
it was. Yeah, we just
Yeah.
went to a town hall, and the reason why we need the federal programs is to have oversight, because when the states are in charge, they do a pretty terrible job.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I study so much stuff on the civil rights movements in the South, and every law that they passed after they declared that black women and men can vote was literally to keep them from it.
Voter
and then once they were
suppression.
able to vote, they like the whole just
The criminalizing?
yeah, criminalizing.
Yeah.
Okay. So convicted felons were only not allowed to vote after they were able to arrest a lot of black men in the South so that way they couldn't vote. Like, it was literally a voter suppression
Yeah.
tactic. And they brought drugs in and criminalized drugs just to keep black men from voting. It's insane.
It's horrible.
But yeah, let's give the power back to the states that
Yeah.
100% support that. So if a document existed that promised to strip away your rights, would you read it? Because this one does.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the Reagan-Trump continuum, let's step back and honor the women who shaped a young Ronald Reagan. He wasn't born in a mansion. He came into the world on February 6, 1911 in Tampico, Illinois, to John and Nellie Reagan.
I didn't even know that we had the same birthday. Me and
February
Ronald
6th?
Reagan, yeah.
For some reason, I thought yours was on the 4th. I knew it was in February.
Yeah,
but it was
no.
on the 4th.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just learned that. So Johnny Reagan was a gruff boots and saddles type, nailed his own boots each morning, lecturing Ronnie about chasing headlines instead of finishing his chores. But his wife Nell was a powerhouse. She organized bake sales to stock the school library. She led the PTA and never missed a town meeting or on education funding. She actually sounds like my kind of lady.
She is awesome. Like, I was listening to the history of Ronald Reagan a couple months ago, and I was like, she is amazing.
Yeah,
What
I would be
happened?
friends with her. I would totally be, like serving on the PTA with her, baking cookies with her, hanging out with her.
It's like the whole nurture versus nature thing is kind of crazy when you think about, like, that mom raised Ronald Reagan. Like,
Yeah, it's wild.
come on. So Nellie believed every child deserved a shot. She taught Ronnie to deliver newspapers before dawn, then returned to lead morning prayers at the local school. She wrote letters to the superintendent to save music programs and rallied neighbors to volunteer in underfunded classrooms. Her activism wasn't just Sunday best. It was strategy, hustle, and heart.
And, young Ronald idolized his mom. He saw firsthand that effective leadership meant showing up for your community and that words on paper could change real lives. But when Jane Wyman became his first wife in 1940, he learned how ambition could erode trust. Jane really struggled with the scrutiny of press and raising two children while supporting his Hollywood dreams. So when they divorced in 1949, it taught Reagan that public image and private reality often collide and not in your favor.
Yeah, and I don't remember if I put it in here, but they lost their second child.
Oh.
Yeah, he died pretty young, and so that really damaged their relationship
Oh,
too.
for
Like, it
sure.
was
Losing
really
a
rough.
child is hard. Most marriages don't survive that.
No. And it was after he was born. I think he was full term, and he died as a baby a couple months later. Yeah, she did not have the support that she needed either. And if anybody wants to continue listening, as a quick plug in here, Redacted History has a 4-part series on Ronald Reagan, and it is very good. After his first divorce, then came Nancy Davis in 1952. Nancy wasn't content to stand silently beside her husband. She dove into California politics, spearheaded literacy drives, and urged him to fund local schools. Her Just Say No campaign in the 1980s might be remembered as a catchy slogan, but behind the scenes, she quietly lobbied for AIDS research funding, mental health programs, and Alzheimer's awareness when her husband was diagnosed.
Nancy's influence softened Reagan's hardline stance on small government, reminding him that a hands-off rhetoric should not abandon children or cast out the vulnerable. She balanced his cowboy optimism with pragmatic compassion, quietly preserving key programs, even as the administration's mantra was to deregulate.
And let's not give him any credit at this point because he was the reason that there is an extraordinary amount of homeless people in California. And after he became president, it unhomed millions more Americans. A lot of what he deregulated contributes directly to that. When Reagan quipped, "Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem," you should hear Nellie's bake sale bell and Nancy's hospital visits echoing in the background. Those two rebel moms taught him that government isn't an enemy. It's a tool we either wield for everybody's good or let slip into tyranny. Which rebel mom in your life taught you the power of community action, and how does their influence echo in your own activism today?
So I had to, sit with this question a bit, and it's kind of sad, but I didn't have any activism. I'm my own first generation of activists that I'm trying to raise an activist child, but I didn't see activism in my community. No, everyone went with the status quo, and everyone was just happy with the way things were, and I always felt different. I never felt like that resonated with me, and I was kind of an outcast in my small town.
So you took Love Thy Neighbor very seriously?
I
while
did.
nobody
I
else did.
did. I was in Sunday school listening to those lessons and took it to heart. And so whenever, I mean, really my activism ramped up whenever I became a mom, because I'm speaking for other voices besides my own. It's a lot of the, I lived with several gay men in college. And so, I
That's
mean,
awesome.
yeah, and I just always wanted to be a voice for minorities and people who didn't have one.
My grandmother actually was pretty big into activism. She lived in a rural town right outside of Birmingham, and she was a powerhouse through it. My grandfather, her father-in-law, was a preacher in Morris, Alabama. And he was a really big figure in the community. He crossed race lines and he went and preached at black churches, and he very much loved everybody. Like, he took Jesus's teachings to heart. And when they desegregated the elementary schools in her area, 20 years past when they were supposed to desegregate it, she marched my aunt across picket lines. And then there are other people in the community that were like, yeah, let's do it. But they were afraid to cross the picket lines because of the people at church. And he said, I know their heart and I know who's out there on those picket lines. You take that baby to school. And she took that baby to school, and she took a lot of other babies to school. She was also very active in the women's liberation movements. And my aunt was raised in that. She was the one that was going to these. And so she grew up with the same mentality. And it's like, those are my two activist role models. So
I love
I've been
that.
very lucky for that. If I didn't have them, I was definitely raised in like conservative Christian mentality, but the hate that came from that after going to Sunday school, I couldn't get behind that. I didn't want that in my heart. I remember my grandfather on my paternal side saying a lot of nasty things about people of color, and I knew it wasn't good. The minute that he left that company, my dad hired every black person and woman that he could. He was like, I'm
Stick it to him.
everybody that is, capable of doing their
Qualified.
job and
Yeah,
qualified
who
deserves
cares?
a place here.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and shift from mid-20th century to today's White House and spotlight Melania Trump, arguably the most private first lady in modern times. And as somebody that's left-leaning, this is something that hurts my heart to just admit that anything is ever good sometimes. But we need to give everybody that credit when credit's due.
Yes, I agree. So in her memoir, The Art of Her Deal, Melania opened up about her belief in the promise of America, the land of freedom, opportunity, and respect. Yet stepping into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, she quickly learned that respect is very hard to give and harder to earn.
I believed in the promise of America, the land of freedom, opportunity, and respect. Yet I learned quickly that respect can be hard to give and harder to earn. And that's directly from her book.
Her Be Best initiative on anti-bullying resonated with many of us as moms. But behind the scenes, she also quietly advocated for children's mental health and digital safety, issues that are becoming battlegrounds in Project 2025. And let me just say that I'm a huge advocate for mental health, especially in kids, and digital safety. I preach to my kids about their digital footprint all the time. They find me very annoying, but like I even had to tell my son the other day, you have to remove that repost, because he didn't share it, but he reposted something on TikTok that if a scout looks and sees that, it could impact your
It's gonna be an
scholarship.
issue,
Yeah.
I know a lot of hers has to do with the AI generated imagery,
Yes.
because they were generating awful pictures of their classmates in schools where it was pornography.
Yeah.
And they were sharing that. It wasn't an issue, and that's absolutely an issue. Melania often appeared reserved in public, a stark contrast to Nancy Reagan's high-profile campaigns. Yet her efforts remind us that influence isn't always loud. Sometimes it's about strategic presence and protecting your own voice in chaos.
To quote Melania, she said, "I wanted to find my own identity, not someone else's idea of who I should be."
That tension between visibility and retreat mirrors every mom's balancing act of self and service. Melania's walk through the West Wing teaches us that wielding a platform wisely sometimes means listening before speaking and observing before acting. So Jen, which First Lady's approach inspires you most? Not even just the ones that we're talking about. Who was your favorite?
Michelle Obama.
I know.
I mean, come on. It's a no-brainer.
I mean, okay, so I actually, in my garden, I have okra planted in honor of her
I love
because
it.
she was the first lady to plant okra in the White House garden.
That's so cool.
And my aunt actually took me there, and I was like, what's the big deal? Like, she just planted something in the garden, but now I'm like, oh, that was a pretty big deal.
Yes.
And I planted the okra fully in honor of Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm doing
I love
it.
that.
I mean, I do love my fried okra and pickled okra. Don't get me wrong.
But it was
It was for Michelle.
yes, it was symbolic.
Yes,
I love it. So we're going to actually jump a little further into the future now, because Project 2025 is not just some far-right fever dream that was cooked up overnight. It's the spiritual sequel to something older, something our parents might have even cheered for.
Yeah, my parents didn't call it Project 2025 or America First. They called it Reaganomics. And that's deregulation, trickle down, morning in America, but only if you're already winning.
So small government became the religion. You cut taxes, kill regulations, and just leave everything to the market. But when you're a mom, you know that markets don't care about kids.
Not exactly. Freedom isn't having to pay out of pocket for your kid's insulin. Freedom isn't a daycare center closing because of zoning loopholes. Freedom isn't trying to make sure you get your medicine from China because of tariffs and they refuse to start shipping things out. That's not freedom. That's abandonment.
In the 80s, Reagan also slashed mental health funding so severely that thousands of psychiatric hospitals closed. And then instead of building alternatives, we saw a rise in homelessness and incarceration.
Which is awful. It's just building a prison system that's imprisonment without rehabilitation. And the Department of Education, Reagan literally campaigned on getting rid of it. That same agenda lives on in Project 2025. They want to kill it completely and hand over education to private interests. What we heard at the Julie Johnson town hall was that they're actually wanting to pull the Civil Rights Management Office from the Department of Education and put it under the Department of Justice. And that is insane.
That is absolutely.
Especially with who our Department of Justice is currently. So what's something the Reagan years dismantled that we're still feeling today?
Environmental protections and union rights, worker safety laws. Project 2025 copy and pastes all of those goals, but with more bite.
Let's talk about the propaganda. Welfare queens, lazy poor, moral decay. These weren't policy critiques, they were racism and misogyny with a PR team.
Exactly. It was all dog whistles and cultural panic. And now Project 2025 just says it out loud. Also, I'm so tired of hearing that all of these Democrats that are protesting need to get a job.
I'm also tired of hearing that we're paid by George Soros,
yes,
because I can assure you
I'm getting no money. I wish that I was. George Soros, if you're listening and you want to give us money, we will gladly take your money.
Yeah.
We protest for free, but we would gladly take a handout.
We'll take it.
It would fund our podcast.
But the thing that's so funny, so while he's a billionaire, he's $6 billion, right? What is any different? Like, millions of people are protesting. How is he paying millions of people protesting with $6 billion?
Yeah.
Especially when, the guy that was worth $400 billion only paid $240 million to buy the presidency.
Exactly. Yeah. What was the moment, though, when you realized that small government was hurting more than helping?
Oh, when I had my daughter, suddenly I saw how fragile the system is. One bad law, one missing benefit, and your whole life tilts. Deregulation doesn't feel abstract anymore. It feels like a threat, especially when the deregulation means that women are being arrested and you have people advocating for the death sentence for mothers that miscarry or seek an abortion.
It's so scary.
Your life can depend on that abortion.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Exactly.
There are women bleeding out and with sepsis that need abortions to be able to live. Nope.
Exactly. And for me, whenever my husband went to a contract job, we lost his employer healthcare benefits. And so luckily we were able to get Obamacare through the Affordable Care Act. And it just, reminded me that a safety net in place, but they want to do away with the ACA also.
Yeah, but they can't figure out how to do it.
I know. I don't think they have the vote still.
They have the concept of a plan. And for what? So billionaires can pay less taxes. So families like mine have to crowdfund cancer care. Also, we're talking shit about billionaires, but you've got Taylor Swift on here.
I know. But she's barely a billionaire.
Barely a billionaire. And she donates a lot.
And she donates a lot. Yeah.
A lot of it anonymously, too, that she doesn't tell us about.
Exactly.
And I think her PR team, somebody on her PR team said that without it officially being PR. They're like, she donates a lot of money, but
and she takes care of her employees.
Yeah. Unlike Oprah sitting over there in Maui, refusing to open a private road from a city that was burning to higher ground. Oprah refusing to open a private road.
I can also one-up you. Joel Osteen whenever we had Hurricane Harvey, and he refused to open his church to let people in.
I know. I'm like, I don't want people sleeping in my church. That is what your church is for, sir.
It is for the people, excuse me. But yeah, so anyone who's still romanticizing Reagan, y'all need to wake up, because he built the runway that Project 2025 is currently trying to land on.
Oh, and let's not forget, there are still people that are cheering that on.
Yeah.
And we're not here to watch the crash. We're here to call it out and stop it. When did small government stop sounding like freedom and start sounding like a warning? Roe v. Wade was probably the biggest wake-up call for me.
No, I agree. It was scary.
They kept telling us that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Gaslit the heck out of us. That's what I cannot stand, the gaslighting.
Me neither.
So let's talk about one of the biggest Reagan-era buzzwords that's still echoing in 2025, deregulation. You hear it and think, okay, fewer rules. Sounds efficient, right? But fewer rules for who? Because it turns out it's almost never moms who benefit when the government steps back.
No, it's usually people who are being investigated
Oh, yeah.
who benefit
We're
from
going
it.
to take a chainsaw to the departments
Yeah.
that have 34 open investigations.
Yeah,
right now.
imagine that.
Whoa.
So it does sound good on a campaign poster, but let's talk about what it actually looks like in real life. Under Reagan, we saw deregulation sweep across airlines, banks, media, education, housing, healthcare, and every time there was consequences.
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
So, like aviation, my husband works for a commercial airline. Deregulation started in the late 70s, but Reagan pushed it further. Routes got cheaper, but safety oversight shrunk. Labor protections collapsed. Airline workers are burnt out, and now in 2025, some of the mechanics and ground crew are pulling 60 to 70-hour weeks. That's not freedom, it's a ticking clock. And let's also talk about real quick that the TSA union was busted illegally, and they're trying to get rid of TSA workers. And who do you think they're going to replace them with?
Probably ICE.
That's exactly. The
Oh my
ICE,
gosh.
Border Patrol, Customs.
That's
And
terrifying.
Also, have you heard about the camps of Proud Boys and neo-Nazis and the KKK that are forming all over the country?
No.
That's who they're finding. The ICE agents that are unmasked, every time they find their name, they are part of one of the neo-Nazi crowds.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, and that's who's going to be
disgusting.
in TSA.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. So the same thing happened with banks. I don't know if you were old enough to remember the savings and loan crisis, but there was deregulation in action. Yeah, you weren't born yet, I don't think.
Not.
You weren't even
I heard
thought.
about it.
Yeah. Well, fewer rules meant risky behavior. It collapsed by the late 80s, and it cost taxpayers over $100 billion. But hey, Wall Street had a blast.
They always do. They're not right now.
Yeah, they're really
Having
not.
a hard time right
I'm
now.
so
They deserve
I'm
it.
so happy for them.
See, I'm fully on the socialist side of we shouldn't have CEOs, we shouldn't have boards, we shouldn't even, like, the stock market, I think, is BS. But why are we appeasing stock markets and brokers and boards when we need to be taking care of the labor?
Yeah, I
I
don't
would-
donate to
would
Goodwill because I don't
employee-
like
yeah.
that they make money.
I want employee-run businesses.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see the employees run their businesses. I want them back with their stock options. I want them back with their profit sharing. Like, they had all of that among their own employees, and they were able to vote on changes in the company for what worked for
Vesting?
them. Yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Like, it just,
So like my husband's company has that where you have to stay a certain number of years and then you're vested and you
Yeah.
get, stock and stuff. They're a private equity firm.
the big issue that I see, though, is like we are appeasing board members and CEOs, and they're getting paid ridiculous
Buku.
amounts of money that should
Buku
be
money.
within the freaking company, and the company should be making those decisions and profiting off of it. Like, this whole deregulation is just adding more people to pay. That's how, honestly, if we get rid of the state governments and we only operate on a big federal government with a couple offices here and there, I think it would be more efficient. That's my own personal view.
I don't know. I just
I
know
don't
that the
either.
way things are working is not
No.
not going well.
Also, the Electoral College
It's
is
DEI. The original OG DEI.
it's so little white boys in the South, in the red states, could have an opinion that they don't necessarily deserve at this point in time.
They definitely don't.
Sorry. But when blue states are funding the red states, it's probably an issue.
Yeah.
I think
And the
it was
red
like-
states are lowest on education.
Yeah, for every dollar I was reading that like Mississippi and Alabama and everybody else puts in, they get almost double that back in government funding. But every dollar that the big blue states put in, they only pull like 99 cents to 91 cents back into their own state. So they're making
because they're
money.
efficient. Yeah, I know it's not. I mean, most of the people that are on, government assistance live in the South, in red states.
I know. And every Republican has caused some kind of economic crash, and every Democrat has pulled it back. But because the economy was bad when the Democrats took over,
They blame
they
them.
get blamed for it.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama had like almost half the debt, and what did Biden just like pulled it all the way back?
Yeah.
Freaking Bill Clinton
Yeah.
eliminated it.
Yeah, I know. It's wild.
So now fast forward to today. Project 2025 doesn't just want fewer rules. It wants entire agencies gutted. The Department of Education, gone. The EPA, defanged. OSHA, unfunded. What's left? A pile of rubble and a sign that says freedom.
Have you personally seen what happens when government protections disappear? Was it your job, your healthcare, your kids' school? For me, it's public education. I've got 3 kids and I need school counselors. Our community needs the speech therapy and special ed teachers and school nurses. And what's happening now, schools are being stripped bare because politicians want to cut spending.
And they're taking it directly out of the public school
Yep.
funds. I homeschool right now, but my daughter starts kindergarten in August. She just got into a gifted and talented school.
I'm so happy for her.
I'm so happy too. Not because I don't believe in public schools. I believe in them so much, it breaks my heart to see what they've become. Underfunded, overburdened, and now, thanks to voucher schemes, being defunded even more to subsidize private education.
And then also sometimes it's just the little things that show the bigger truth, like not having classroom tissues and no paper towels, no librarians. Meanwhile, state leaders are throwing money at corporations.
And let's not forget what Reagan did to healthcare. He cut mental health funding so hard that tens of thousands of people ended up homeless. And today, it's still nearly impossible to find affordable mental health care unless you have great insurance. And even then, good luck with waitlists.
And now we've got Project 2025 calling for slashing Medicaid, pulling funding from the NIH, privatizing Social Security, all in the name of reform.
Canada, don't privatize your healthcare.
I agree.
I know that's your big platform right now with the PP Maple MAGA, Pierre Poilievre. I have endometriosis, a reproductive disease that affects 1 in 10 women. It's barely researched. My aunt has worked with the NIH for decades, and she's watching vital research funding dry up. We're not too expensive. We're just not seen as a priority.
Moms are never seen as a priority under these systems. We're the unpaid labor, the safety net, the fallback plan, and then we're just told to stop complaining.
Every single time.
So what would you demand from your leaders for moms and families?
How about childcare that doesn't cost more than a mortgage? 1.
Yep.
Most important thing, because I would be working right now if that wasn't the case. Paid leave for new parents, fully funded schools with certified librarians, and maybe clean drinking water.
The poop water. I can't. I don't even understand why.
Flint still doesn't have clean water.
Yeah, it's terrible. So how about food programs that don't shame children or medical care that doesn't bankrupt families?
Here's the bottom line. Deregulation doesn't just remove bureaucracy, it removes protections, and moms know the difference. Because we're the ones left picking up the pieces when government fails us.
Project 2025 wants to sell you a fantasy about freedom, but freedom without structure, freedom without support, that is not freedom.
We've read the fine print, and we've lived through the fallout. That's why we're here. What safety net do you rely on today that could disappear tomorrow? And who would be there to catch you if it did? Let us know.
Moving on, we're going to talk more about where all of this is heading because deregulation, budget cuts, purging civil servants, it's not just about efficiency. It's something much, much bigger.
And we've got to name it. What Project 2025 is pushing, this isn't just conservative policy, it's the authoritarian playbook.
We're not just making that up either. Trump has praised Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, calling him a strong leader, had him to his house at Mar-a-Lago. Under Orban's rule, he turned family values into a pipeline for consolidation of power. He took over the courts, the media, and rewrote their constitution, all the while telling the voters that they were protecting the nation.
That's the whole thing. Protect the nation. From who?
Exactly.
Because it's you. Or the Taliban, using law and religion to strip women of every right and calling it order. This idea that fear justifies total control is not new, but it is dangerous. And speaking of the Taliban, we will be getting to a segment about Malala Yousafzai. She's my daughter's favorite activist. But she has an incredible story directly related to the Taliban, and there are so many parallels to what's happening in today's society for what they took over.
It's scary to me when I look back at photos from Iran from the 70s, and women were able to be, their faces uncovered. They were able to serve positions in
Their
government.
legs were showing.
They showed a leg. I know, like
knee-length skirts.
I mean, it just it gives me goosebumps when I see pictures how far they have rolled back those protections for
And there were
women.
still women at that time that weren't educated, that didn't know how to read and didn't know how to do a lot of that, but their parents could teach them. They still went to school, but
Yeah.
it's insane.
So it's just frustrating. For us in the United States, what is it going to look like for us? Project 2025 is laying the groundwork to revoke protections for LGBTQIA people, expand ICE authority, and use obscure legal clauses to deport naturalized citizens. Let that sink in. That, like, they're kidnapping people and putting them in places where they're stashed away to never be brought back.
They're reversing their visas without them knowing, and then they're just taking them off the street.
And college visas, people who are here for college. One student I saw, they had like a semester left to finish their graduate program, and they were told they had to leave immediately.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything. They haven't protested.
No, I mean, and they have people that are in graduate school that are actually working in clinics and hospitals and everything else, and they are big, like, to the support of that area.
Right.
In their hospitals, and they're just...
All those people are literally going to go to other countries and find jobs, and we're going to get further and further and further behind.
The Yale professors that left Yale and went to Canada to get out of the U.S.
I mean, I would. But also, they want to push Christianity into public policy. Was it Pam Bondi said she's going to start
the anti-Christian bias?
Yeah. Because that's who's being persecuted against is Christians. Okay.
I mean, in Syria, I think there is actual, like, they're kidnapping people and killing them, but
not here.
Nobody's persecuting you. Other people just also want space.
Exactly. They just want space to be able to freely practice their religion or the lack thereof, to not have religion shoved down their throat. Also, they like to ban books and rewrite curricula and go after journalists. So
also, Supreme Court just ruled that they cannot defund NPR and PBS.
Thank goodness.
Yay.
It's a win. It's a win.
It's 1-1.
Well, and didn't they say that the Associated Press had to be allowed back in?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but there were also other journalists and news network, and they were really mad at the AP for pushing because they didn't want to get in trouble, and then they won. So hopefully there's a lot more pushback.
I hope so, because especially when they're allowing that one super right-wing guy that was in there, he got to field a question that was just the most hyperbolic, disgusting.
Yeah.
It said MS-13 in the question. I'm just like, we all know the narrative that y'all are trying to sell the American people. It's not
working.
No. Another thing that they're wanting to let the president override agency decisions and fire federal judges. That is so against the Constitution. That is abhorrent.
Was it No Rogue Rulings Act?
Yeah. So they did.
26.
They said that they can't make injunctions that would affect the entire country.
Nation, on the federal basis, even though it's supposed to do that before it gets to the Supreme Court.
That's the whole way it works. Is it goes to the lower courts and then it goes appeals to the next court until it gets to the Supreme Court. That's just the way it works. So I don't know how these politicians
just ignore
say,
it.
"Oh, it's ignorable because it's not enforceable."
Yeah,
that's insane, because that means they're just putting everything onto the Supreme Court, and they don't even have that much time because they don't meet that much.
So one of Gandhi's most famous and pointed lines about Christianity is, "I like your Christ. I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ because of how awful they've been." So with the anti-Christian bias, like, that's a really rough thing to see, because it's not inclusive and it's not the love that Jesus had wanted. So we are not degrading Christianity by any means.
No.
But we are degrading the Christian nationalist.
And the way that people use Christianity to further politics.
Yeah.
Like, it's not supposed to be like that.
That's directly against the Bible teachings. So, and they're calling this restoring American greatness. Like, we're all supposed to just ignore the giant red flags waving in our faces. When's the last time you heard someone say, "protect the children," and it had nothing to do with actual child safety?
when they use kids to justify cruelty, like banning drag shows but not banning assault rifles, pulling LGBTQIA plus books from shelves while ignoring rising hate crimes.
While justifying killing almost 20,000 Palestinian
Yeah.
children because there was an attack on Israel and kids
But
died.
yeah,
And
by
neither of them should have happened because it's colonization.
exactly. No, just because we think what's happening is not okay does not mean I'm pro Hamas.
Yeah, no.
Like, no, I'm not okay with
I'm not
bombing
okay with
children in
any
tents.
of the war, and I
I'm
think
not
Israel
okay.
needs to leave Palestine alone.
Yeah, I'm not okay with any babies dying because of
No.
a war that they didn't
No,
choose
but
to
we're not
fight.
bombing safe zones and
Yeah.
hospitals
On
and
Easter,
schools.
yeah, it's horrible.
You know who's being erased? Trans kids, queer kids, immigrant kids, kids' classmates who are already hearing from grown adults that they don't belong. What are your kids learning about who is welcome in America? Are they seeing compassion or control?
I am not seeing a lot of compassion from a lot of classmates of my daughter, which is not surprising. There was a young girl who was bothering my daughter, and one of her friends said, "You should call ICE on her." Literally. I said, "That is disgusting. That is not okay, like to even joke about."
Yeah.
And she's here legally, so it's again, it's just horrible. So I explained to my daughter, but then I also explained to her that, there are kids who are disappearing, who are going before immigration courts alone.
Yeah.
I saw a thing on the way here. Yes. Having to do, so there's little kids from 4 to 7 that are having to go to immigration court alone because Trump rolled back protections that allowed them to have an attorney to represent them. They're like playing with toys, talking to a judge about things that they don't even understand. I mean, I am seeing a lot of prejudice going around.
And I mean, they're also arresting children on the street too,
Yes.
without parents
Yes.
around, which is extremely scary. That's how they lost so many kids the last time around. And then they think they got trafficked.
Yeah, I think they did.
My daughter is 5 and she hears everything. Even when I think I'm whispering about the news, she's starting to ask why some people are scared of other people who look different. And while we do regularly talk about that, it's still a really hard topic to cover.
Especially because your kids are so young.
Yes.
And you want to keep her heart pure.
Yeah. But we're
I know we have to be a realist. I hate it. We have to talk, plain speak and be real with our kids. But at the same time, you don't want to say, hey, this world can be a really ugly place.
Yeah.
But it can, and it is right now.
Yes.
And you have to let her know that she has a voice.
Yep. And to use it to call out the injustice.
Hey, she does. She wanted to protest on her birthday.
I know. So bad.
She really did. That's so cute. I understand why she couldn't, though. But yeah, it's so cute that she wanted to.
We're going Sunday. It's cool.
Yeah. But, the other thing about schools is that they're banning books like The Bluest Eye and Genderqueer, but want to put the 10 Commandments in the classroom.
In Louisiana, and it's going to get pushed to other states too. I think it already is here in Texas.
I think Oklahoma, too.
So let's talk about that. Project 2025 calls for Christian morality to be the bedrock of policy, but who's Christianity? And what happens to Jews, Muslims, atheists, or anyone who doesn't fall in line?
It's not faith, it's forced religion, and it's the opposite of religious freedom.
And it's so frustrating because it's not even about belief. It's about control. Dress codes, pronouns, bathrooms, all this energy on micromanaging people and their genitals instead of solving real problems. What would the founding mothers say about this? That morality means surveillance? That freedom only applies to a select few?
Yep, sounds about white. Project 2025 is straight up authoritarian. It's about control disguised as order, fear disguised as faith, and oppression disguised as tradition.
And it's happening right here, right now. Not overseas, not theoretical, in our libraries, our school boards, our state houses. And if we don't speak up, we're complicit. So what kind of country do we want our kids to grow up in? Who do we want sitting next to them in class, at the doctor's office, or in the voting booth? So let's zoom in for a second, because Project 2025 is about a system. But there's a face they're building it around, and that face is and has been Donald Trump.
Project 2025 was designed to be president-proof, but let's not pretend this playbook wasn't written with Trump's return in mind. He was the model, he was the test case, the chaos candidate who already tried it once, and he is ready to finish the job.
He came back with a vengeance this time around. I still almost think that it would have been better if we would have just done straight 8 years with him.
Yeah, then we'd be done with him forever.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure a lot of it would have gotten a lot worse, but I just, always think, like, what if he would have won? And
I know.
So remember when Trump said he would be a dictator only on day one? That's not a joke. That was a threat with a smile.
He's already floated ideas about purging federal agencies, weaponizing the DOJ, and giving himself total control over independent departments. That's not democracy. That's corporate takeover meet cult of personality. Also, he's floating around having a third term, which we do not unequivocally would need to oppose that with the vengeance.
Yeah, and it's
I mean, they have to change the Constitution.
They're gonna want to change it from like the third term. Like you can only run 2 terms in a row. After you run 2 terms, you cannot go again. So that would completely eliminate another chance of even Obama.
Yeah,
for a third term because he's already run 2
in a row.
terms.
Yeah.
So they will literally do it to eliminate any kind of
They'd have to get a 2/3 majority.
Yeah, 2/3 in the Senate.
I don't think they would get it.
Or 2/3, I think the states have to ratify it.
Okay, well, I don't think they would get it.
No, I don't think they would either.
But that's still scary. Also, then I worry if he declares martial law right before. It's like, oh, we can't have an election.
If he declares martial law, the general consensus is strike immediately and everybody's in the streets until it's over.
Yeah, but what if he does it at the end of his election, his term?
Yeah.
So that we don't have an election. That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah. So
and that is also unconstitutional. I think he can be arrested for that immediately. Okay. And let's talk about the language. Trump calls journalists the enemy of the people. He praises Orban. He pushed for a military force on protesters and called for termination of the Constitution to redo the 2020 election. And that's not fringe, again.
And what scares me is how many people will say he's just saying stuff. He means it. He tried to overturn the election in 2020. He's faced 91 felony charges and currently holds 34.
The part that makes me sick, we tell our kids to be kind, to tell the truth, admit when they're wrong, and then we watch adults cheer for someone who does none of those things. That's disconnect, and it's corrosive.
And when we talk about Trump, we're not saying this as like a gotcha. We're saying it as moms who've watched kids locked in cages.
With Obama and Trump.
Yeah. Not okay.
No.
Either one. Neither one. We're not excusing that. That's terrible. We've also seen healthcare rights rolled back. We lived through a pandemic under a leader who mocked science and compassion.
And took the word woman out of research for science.
More than that.
Oh, way more than that. But let's just... Women in general were not allowed in research.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
We lived it, and now there's a sequel. Trump won again, with Project 2025 already written. What do you wish you did differently?
I mean, I guess, are you asking rhetorically? Because I did everything I could do.
Did everything I could do.
I mean, like, I can't. I mean, if y'all want to tell us what
we met each other sooner.
We could have gotten knocked on doors more and explained.
Out of here.
Yeah, I mean, other than.
All right, so if you're watching a video, this just abruptly stopped and switched over to us in different outfits because for some reason our recording just completely cut off. If you're listening on audio, I am so sorry that you're having to listen to us explain this. But we're going to start off from what we left off
Where we left off. So I thought about wearing the same shirt, but then I did too. I didn't want people to think if we mentioned that it was a different day, I didn't want them to think that it was the only outfit I owned was a Taylor Swift t-shirt. So.
I know. I was like, because I literally like took it out of the dryer and put it on the chair, and after I'd already texted you, and I was like, I wonder if I should wear the same shirt. But we went with the same like style. I
know. That's so funny. We were twinning. So anyway, back to what we were discussing. It's about Project 2025. So 31% of it is already completed, and another 18% has been started and attempted or has been blocked by the courts. So we've got to stop this because it isn't about whether or not you like a political party. It's about whether they believe in democracy or in decency or in just basic human rights.
Did you see today that one of the judges in the nation blocked a good part of the SAVE Act?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That is true. I don't think it's going to make it through the Senate anyway, but it's not good. So I'm glad that they see it for what it is, voter suppression.
I mean, they've blocked it for multiple, I think this is the 3rd congressional session that they've tried to pass this act in. So I don't think that it's not doable. I think it's only doable currently because everything's held by Republicans, but they still don't hold enough to pass a law in Senate. That's not good. So, if you're tired, we get it, but this isn't the time to go quiet. This is the time to go loud.
Because authoritarianism does not happen all at once. It creeps, it gaslights, it calls itself normal, and then it locks the door.
So we're going to keep shouting through the cracks.
Gonna keep asking the hard questions.
Because our kids deserve better than silence. We've unpacked a lot today. Reaganomics, deregulation, authoritarian tendencies, and the personal influence behind Reagan and Trump. We've got to talk specifics about Trump's own executive orders because these aren't random. They're foundational to Project 2025, shaping policies whose reverberations and consequences will be felt for years to come.
Exactly. They're not just executive orders. They're more than policy. They're a literal roadmap, a dry run for what Project 2025 seeks to institutionalize. Let's just highlight a few of the most alarming. So Schedule F, Executive Order 13957. It's probably one of the most significant executive orders that Trump issued in 2020. It would have stripped protections from thousands of civil servants, essentially allowing political appointees to replace nonpartisan career experts. Project 2025 explicitly calls for reinstating Schedule F immediately upon a Republican presidency.
Think about that. Gutting the civil service, removing neutrality, and inserting loyalty tests for government jobs. Also, lie detector tests. This isn't draining a swamp, it's replacing expertise with obedience. It's a red flag waving for democracy. Banning DEI training, Executive Order 13950. Trump banned diversity, equity, and inclusion training for federal employees and contractors, labeling it anti-American propaganda. Project 2025 embraces continuing this stance, arguing such trainings undermine American values.
And what values exactly? Inclusion, equity, respect for diversity. Those are all fundamental American values. They're not threats.
No.
Banning DEI is not just about training. It's about silencing an entire group of people and erasing their experiences. Another one is immigration restrictions. So these executive orders are 13769 and 13780. Those extensive executive actions are all surrounded around immigration. Travel bans that target Muslim majority countries, the very harsh restrictions on asylum. It's setting a stark precedent. Project 2025 wants all of these permanently codified and expanded even further.
These orders aren't isolated. They're systematic. They build a framework of exclusion, fear, and xenophobia. Families separated, people stranded, human rights undermined, 4-year-old children deported, American citizen children deported with cancer and no medication to a place that does not have a doctor for them, all under the guise of national security.
Exactly, Chelsey. And that brings us back to the authoritarian playbook that we talked about earlier. You create this threat, you amplify fear, promise safety through these restrictive actions, and then consolidate power into just a few hands. Another one of these detrimental EOs is the environmental deregulation. So Executive Order 13771, Trump's order requires agencies to eliminate 2 regulations to every new one that's proposed. Project 2025 not only agrees, but expands upon those rollbacks, favoring corporate interests over community health. Poop water.
Poop water. Also, whatever is going on with the FDA and the national parks as well.
Yeah, all of it.
Because those are corporate lobbyists that have taken over those cabinet positions and
had to chop down our trees.
And drill.
Our forests, yep.
The deregulation isn't abstract. It's your kid's asthma, your town's drinking water, your neighborhood's safety. It's taking something public, our environment, and handing control to private entities who prioritize profit. Social media and speech, EO 13925. Trump's directive to examine Section 230 protections and regulate social media platforms foreshadowed Project 2025's intent to redefine free speech, especially in the digital sphere.
This feels especially relevant as moms because we rely on digital spaces for our information, to organize, have a sense of community. If free speech online becomes politically regulated, it's going to be a lot harder for us to organize and advocate. We met through social media because we were trolling our
Lance
representatives
Goodin's
page.
constituents.
And we utilize these platforms to share information, to share truth, to dispel information that counteracts the lies that Trump's administration and his cronies are sharing. And if we were starting to be censored on those apps, that would be really scary and make it much more difficult for us to be effective.
I mean, we're already being censored on those apps. If you put in Democrat versus Republican on Instagram, it shows you a wide range of propaganda material for both. But if you type in Democrats, it is purely negative and it's Republican slander towards the Democrats, or like we're the good old boys on the Republican side. It's insane.
Yeah. And then also, if you're on TikTok, there's all these words that you can't say or you'll get censored. And so there's so many divisive hot button topics that you have to essentially create an entire new
vocabulary
to work around so you don't get your platforms shut down.
I mean, me just talking about what Lance Goodin is supporting is getting me throttled on views on my segments.
So have you ever felt the impact of digital misinformation or seen firsthand how social media affects community organizing?
Oh, yes. Our U.S. Representative, Congressman Lance Goodin in CD5 in Texas, posts so much false narratives, outright lies, and misinformation that we started fact-checking everything he posts and sharing it online.
We've been getting a lot of positive feedback for those because a lot of people have been blocked, so they don't even know what kind of junk he's posting.
Yeah, and then if you do know and you're putting them out, I mean, we have people that we obviously have not reached yet in our congressional district. I mean, we're only at about like 200 or 300 people at this point that know who we are. And being able to post that, like we get a lot of good feedback from people who haven't seen our other posts and who we haven't communicated with. I think they're feeling more of a sense of community knowing we're out there.
Yes, we're grassroots organizing through social media. So that would be really detrimental if we had that taken away. Also, just back to these executive orders, they're not just policy papers. They are testing the water. Project 2025 builds on each of the precedents, refining them into a far-reaching permanent agenda.
Yes. These orders were designed not only to impact policy, but to test public reaction and tolerance for authoritarian policies. And if we're not vigilant, they won't just be executive orders, they'll be laws, enshrined and permanent. Which executive order feels most urgent to you personally? What would you say if you could speak directly to policymakers about it? Like, I advocate more for the SAVE Act and then also immigration policies. Both are super important to me.
Yeah. So I'm gonna look real quick and see what he's passed recently, just so that I can have a sense.
I don't even know what he's passed recently. I think he tried to pass another one, or he's going to pass one. I don't know. I've seen a lot of his Truth Social posts lately, and they're
oh my gosh,
horrifying.
He's unhinged.
He is unhinged.
Did you see where he's like reinstating Columbus Day?
Yeah, I saw that one. Like the Italians are going to be really happy with me.
So important. It's so important. Thank you. Thank you for that.
But then he's going to sit there and, Jen, he wants to rename New Mexico New America.
Oh gosh, Melanie Stansbury's not going to stand for that. Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
The scream I scrumped.
I know. When I saw that, I was like, who does he think he is? You can't just go around renaming states.
No.
What a weirdo.
I was reading the post of an indigenous person that lives in the area, and he was just like, this goes back to 1541 when New Mexico was discovered, before America was a thing. And it was by explorers that had named the area. But he's going to make a big deal out of Columbus Day, and that was 1492, and so it was only, a 49-year difference?
Dang.
And he's going to he's going to throw a massive fit that we're ignoring Columbus Day, but we're going to rename the indigenous land of New Mexico to New America.
New America, exactly. So, for one, after just, scrolling the whitehouse.gov, the fact that he wants to bring discipline back into public schools, that to me is, I understand that some of these kids don't act right, right? They've been through a lot since COVID. There's been more behavior issues. I
Yes.
can totally admit that. But I saw something that said it was like a false flag because teachers and administrators were like, we are not going to do that. Because
No.
again, what's going to happen if they do put hands on a student, that's opening the door to litigation and people to say that public schools don't have control over their students. They're having to
Exactly.
resort to physical violence and
Yeah.
all of the above. And so
They're trying to take out the public schools from the inside. And they're
Yes.
100% doing everything they can.
the call is coming from inside the house. That's what I thought
Yeah.
when I read that. I am very pro teacher, pro admin,
Yeah.
pro appropriate discipline. Appropriate. But
I will tell you, if somebody lays a hand on my
I
child,
was about to
I'm
say
gonna fight.
nobody is going to put a hand on my kid. Period.
Yeah.
That's my job.
If somebody lays a hand on my children, it's the same reason I have an issue with the men and women's sports, whatever BS that is, because it opens up the doorway for teachers, coaches, and everybody else to inspect the genitals of children to confirm.
bizarre.
And we're not doing that.
No, we are not
mean,
doing that.
If you're already getting doctors, like vaccination records and all of that, that tell you what the gender of the child is,
There's no need for
gender,
any of
sex,
that.
whatever, for a small child. Nobody needs to look at my daughter's genitals to tell me that she's a female. Like,
Exactly.
we'll get to whatever other talk we need to later in life if she decides that this is not what's working for her. But at this point in time, like, you look at my child, what is under her pants, or you lay a hand on my child, we are done.
Please. Yeah. I mean, that should be a crime, period.
It was.
It should be, exactly. And the fact that they're rolling back protections for children, for women, for vulnerable persons, for people with disabilities, it's just...
I mean, it's the same party that wanted to shout from the rooftops that Trump was doing everything to end trafficking and sex abuse from somebody that literally traffics people, has been involved in it, and has multiple counts of sexual abuse.
They do the research that they do is very, very
Limited,
one-sided. And the thing that scares me about, I saw this some more stuff on the Charlie Kirk thing. The thing that really scares me is that they don't even believe facts. They don't even believe judges' orders right in front of their face. They don't believe anything that they read or hear or see. Everything is fake news. They don't even
it's
try to take it.
1984, George Orwell. Like,
It is insane.
you don't, anything you see, anything you hear, gone.
Yeah, I don't
That's not
get
right.
it.
I don't either. I literally was getting into an argument with somebody over it. He sent me, for his fact check, a meme. And I said, no, the 5th and 14th Amendments, that's what determines due process. Then we have this Supreme Court ruling from 1886 that declares that it's any person within jurisdiction, plus multiple Federalist Papers, because Alexander Hamilton was a huge advocate for the fact that if you are on American soil, you are tried as an American citizen, regardless of your status. That is one thing that he constantly advocated for. So I'm sitting here like, I know that you are wrong. And this is all of the documents I have to back it up. Nope, you're wrong.
You're misinterpreting it. They tell us that we're wrong. I literally said, how am I wrong if this is in the Constitution and the Supreme Court backed it in multiple cases? And they're like, you're just wrong. You're just spreading misinformation. What?
No.
What?
I know. It is completely just blinded.
Yeah.
I read this stuff for fun with my children.
Yeah.
Not even because I need to know it. Like, I enjoy it. Yeah. So it drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy too. Back to the subject at hand.
Yes.
The reason why we're shouting about Project 2025 today is because these executive orders are doing everything to enact Project 2025.
Yes.
It's not speculative. It's not what if. It is actionable. It's been here. It's outlined. A lot of them are just waiting to become law.
Yeah. So listeners, if this worries you, it should. But remember, you aren't powerless. Email your representatives. Vote like your democracy depends on it, because it absolutely does.
Just remember, you're not alone. We are moms, and Chelsey and I are fighters. And our voices will be the loudest when democracy needs it the most.
Yes.
Dude, I saw that shirt that says, I think it's like a protest shirt for a husband. It says, good luck silencing my wife or something.
I
was like, I feel like both of our husbands need that show.
He is so tired of me at this point. When I told him, because he was like, you're going to start a podcast. And I was like, yeah, because I hadn't even formulated the words and told him, because he's not interested in the political stuff the way that I am. So we talk about like the big stuff, but we don't talk about the small everyday stuff. That's when I text you.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is the basis. Do you think that would be good? He was like, well, I wouldn't listen to it. I'm like, it's not for you. But do you think it would be good? He was like, there's a market out there for everything. I guarantee it'll be good. But it's just, getting past that point. But,
yeah, my husband told me,
funny.
He didn't even necessarily, he said, I don't know if I want to listen to your podcast. Because I said, can you just give me feedback? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, why? Like, what are you resistant to listening? And he said, I don't know. It just feels kind of weird, like peering into something I'm not supposed to. Or I was
like, it's your life too.
I was like, I don't really know what you mean by that. But I mean, we're literally just two moms talking politics. Like, that's what it is. And he was like, okay.
We formulate it, but that's because that's what we know. It's not like we're not moms talking about mom stuff. It's just, this has been our lives, and we're in a similar situation. Yeah. We're dealing with a lot of the stuff that, you've already dealt with too. And then we're seeing the politics from almost the same standpoint, with really similar views. Exactly. And I feel like there are a lot of people in our area, especially like being in Texas, that feel the same way we do.
They're just scared to speak up, I think.
Or they don't know who to speak up to, because it's dangerous in the South to voice your opinion. I mean, people get shot over smaller things here.
I was going to ask you, did you see where someone got arrested for their protesting, the Dallas protest?
Yes.
Like the May Day one. But apparently they were not affiliated with the 50-51. And they were impeding traffic, and they were warned repeatedly not to impede traffic or something, and they had no permits. So this is just a reminder that, I mean, it's still kind of ridiculous and make good trouble, but we just need to make sure that we are following the laws, and we do our permitting and everything if we ever host another one.
I don't even think it would be as big of a deal in a typical situation, but since we're dealing with a threat of martial law, that we need to be careful.
Ducks in a row. I want my ducks in a row. But, okay, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
The government is only the problem when it's turned against us, moms, children, and communities. Dear America, we are raising the next generation while watching an agenda that could erase their future. We demand our schools, our rights, and our children's voices be protected. Don't underestimate us, because silence is not our strength.
America, what happened to liberty and justice for all? We will not stand by as freedom is cornered and children pay the price. Moms Against the Machine. So here's some micro actions, things that you can do tomorrow. Email your rep with the subject Stop Project 2025 without full debate. Share this episode with one sentence on why it matters to your family. And sign up for a watchdog newsletter like Indivisible, ACLU, Heritage Action.
Go to mobilize.us and look up events in your space, in your area.
Yes, that's a good one too. So a sneak peek for next week. We're going to go to the ballot box, the battle for the vote, from suffrage to the SAVE Act, and you won't want to miss it. If today's episode made you feel something, share it. Tag us at Moms Against the Machine on Instagram or Moms and Machines on TikTok.
Send us your own letter to America. Record a voice memo. Email us at momsagainstthemachinepod@gmail.com. Tell us what resistance looks like in your house. If you do record a voice memo, we'll use your voice with permission for your own letter. All right. Until then, stay loud, stay joyful, and stay against the machine.
And Chelsey out.
Do, 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 do.